Good morning, everyone. For today and the remainder of the week, I will be chairing as our real chairman is on vacation. Someone's echoing. Oh, okay. Just a momentary issue. No pressure. Hello. Thank you. So we're back on the air. This is the normal work meeting for the board along with staff, wherein staff presents all numbers of issues that will ultimately appear at the following Tuesday or some Tuesday in the future. So at the moment, we will begin with a report from risk management.
Good morning. So we are reporting on our workers. Are we ready?
Yeah. Did you say your name?
Oh, Shelley Pierce, Risk Management.
There you go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is our presentation in regards to our May claims. So we had 3 closed claims in May. In May, we also had 3 new claims. Total claims, we had 118 closed, 11 denied, open 11, submitted 1, and pending 2. For workers' compensation, total.
Oh, wait. Oh, let's go back to that slide.
Any questions so far?
Any questions? Your button?
What's the difference between being submitted and pending open? I would think both of them are submitted categories.
So we've submitted, but they're still pending. So there could be questions or there could be unanswered claims as far as questions with our risk pool or our, Kathy, maybe you could answer that a little bit better.
So, so submitted means the employees submitted it, but we haven't opened it. We haven't taken action on it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, we
Yeah.
haven't taken action on it. And so pending open, that one is the one I'm not 100% sure on. So I think those are it's very similar, but I believe those are in the hands of our third-party administrator, and they haven't made any decision as far as rejection or continuing it on.
And then the opened is
They're working. Those
investigations
are
are
working.
going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're working, they're paying claims. Anything that's open, they're already starting to pay claims on.
So for just the conversation with anybody, and they ask how many how many worker compensation claims are there? Without going through this, we would just say there are 11.
They're 11. Because those are the ones that are open, and we've started a case and we're paying claims on those.
Just a little background on that. What are the possible consequences of these claims if they all mature against the county, let's say, or against the government?
Yeah. So we do have workers' comp. We're self-insured, and we do have a workers' comp excess insurance policy that we pay a premium on. And so if they exceed a certain dollar threshold, then they move into the excess workers' compensation policy. And so far, none of our claims have moved over to the excess workers' compensation policy.
Do we have an aggregate on that, or is it per event?
It's per event.
And that number is?
I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
In the ballpark, are we talking 10K, 100K?
No, it's well over 100K. I mean, because we have a couple of claims that are fairly large from a fatality, but those haven't even gone into the excess workers' comp premium, so.
Okay, and should they go against us, how are we suited financially for handling the extreme ones?
We do have a reserve for our workers' compensation account. I believe it's in the range of about $300,000 right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Ready to move
Sorry.
on to the next one? No. Would you like that information for the next presentation?
It's always good to have it handy. A
Okay.
thing you'll find out is that I can't remember what the previous month said.
Okay, yeah, we will gather that data and we will
Take
have that.
notes, but I can't read them.
No, it's good for me to know too, so that way I have that knowledge as well. And I know we've talked about it and we've had that knowledge or we've had those conversations. So I'll make sure I gather that knowledge. So,
Yeah, and a little bit, if you put yourself in our shoes, we have to communicate with the public and they ask questions.
certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. So next slide is the workers' compensation total claim by year of loss. So focusing on 2024, right now we're at total claims of 12, 31,000, 830,000. Nothing's really changed from the last month. Only by a few percentage. We went from 8 claims, rose to 12 claims, but only by a few percentage points if you're looking at the total dollar amount. We did flip this to a percentage point, which I believe was a request of the commissioners. Any questions?
Yeah. Question?
Mhm.
Is there anything we should discern from this or conclude? Some kind of a message?
The dollar amount didn't really change that much, just the total amount of claims just went from 8 to 12, but the dollar amount really didn't change that much.
And when you look at the chart, you'll see we're pretty much, other than that 1 year, 2019, which was an anomaly, we're pretty much averaging on the range of 20 to 23 claims per year that we're managing. And we, the total expense amount without that one claim is well in the 130 to less than 100,000. And so we budget, we put a sufficient budget more than that aside for active claims. To be prudent.
Yeah, I know it may be difficult and or obnoxious, but the way it looks here, you would assume that 2024 is a real reduction, and I would scale that up
Yeah.
in dashed line or something to let people know.
Yeah, that's, that's just for 5 months. All the others are for 12 months.
Yeah, so maybe a little box up there or something
Yeah.
that says proportionately or
Yeah.
something.
Even when you look at 2023, they're still receiving expenditures on those. So,
Yeah, from this, then and the answers, I would conclude we're going to average somewhere between 20 and 25 claims a year.
On average, yeah, if you look at the
based
overall
upon trend.
trends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then again, clarification, that in the year 2019, the total paid out of 131,000 plus, how does that compare, or how do I interpret that against the 723? That's the stop loss protection?
Yes, so the 723,000 total paid, and 86% of that was just one claim. And so I think what they did is they showed the 131 so that you can see that's the rest of the claims.
Right, and the
Is-
stop loss handled everything
Yeah,
else. Okay,
correct.
thank you.
So in terms of policy changes, my only question is, taking a look at 2019, that spike was a single event. If I remember correctly, and I might not, but that was one of the jailhouse death claims that was finally settled. Okay,
This is only the
these are
Workers'
employees, these
It
are
was,
employees.
it was for the
accidents?
sheriff's, it was the sheriff's department. And that was the fatality, one of the
Okay, the
deputies.
Deputies was shot. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. All right. But the point I was going to make, but it's not relevant on this, was we did make a policy change to begin administering medically assisted treatment for people coming into the jails who
Yeah.
who
This
are
is-
on those
This
plans.
is workers' comp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are
This-
workers'
yeah,
comps, that's
yeah.
right.
This is employees.
All right.
Ready to move on? Okay. So next slide is total of workers' compensation, total open, pending, closed claims. This just breaks it out by submitted, pending, open, open, denied, and closed, showing the total of 12 for 2024. And it breaks it up on a bar graph. Okay. And then the next slide just shows your typical May, the trends. The line is a little bit above our frequency, but what I would say is that we are trending normal. Oh, if you raise that just a little bit, I don't know, Bailey, if it can go just a little bit above, it would show January, February, April, May on that last slide. There we go.
One more.
One more back.
There you go. Oops. Yeah,
The bar at the, well, on the far left, it would show January, February, March, April, May. For some reason,
It
it's
shows on
just,
the
oh, it
screens.
does on your screen. Okay, there you go. And then on the
it
next
does.
slide, it just shows claims open by quarter, trend by year. In 2024, it just shows quarter one by quarter two, 8/12. And then on slide 7.
Quarter one is what time frame?
Quarter one is
Quarter one.
January to March.
Yep, January through March, and then 4 for quarter 2
So far,
so far.
one more month. So that's actually a tick up then.
Yep, we're gonna knock on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions so far? Okay. Then we're looking at slide 7, workers' compensation open, pending, submitted by cause of injury. So you'll see on the far left side, slip and fall is typically the highest category. That's where we typically see workers' compensation in the highest area. Right now, we're trending at 6, followed by noise, vehicle, exercise, physical, power tool, repetitive other, action of person, insect, and animal. Any questions by cause of injury?
Insects, animals, I take it that's a dog bite somewhere.
Yeah, noxious weeds. Sometimes you're out there in the wilderness. You just never know what happens out there. But yeah,
Yeah.
just out there,
I think-
animal.
I
Mhm.
think that's a result of taking on animal control.
Yep.
Being new. And if I remember correctly, it's animal control.
Yep.
And it's actually, it may not be, because we had one of our deputies
In a training.
in a training
Mhm.
episode with the
The
canine.
canine.
And the vehicle, that's probably the sheriff.
Repeat that,
The
Commissioner?
vehicle, the two claims on the vehicles.
Yes.
So a claim like that includes examination at the hospital plus treatment.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with the condition of the vehicle at that point,
No, it has nothing to do
just
with
the
it.
individual.
This is just for the employee.
And how do we do the
expenses.
time away from the work?
I think we have I think we have reports, lost time reports, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they're included in this presentation.
They are not.
So the dollar amounts of the claim include the lost time? Or
This is
the-
just, this
No.
is not even dollars. This is just the number of claims.
Yeah, I'm hearkening
Mhm.
back
Yeah.
to, so when we had $100 and some odd $1,000 on the,
I think
That's just,
time off work would come out of their sick leave typically.
yes, or are being paid. Mhm.
So we've had reports like this on a periodic basis, just because we've had a turnover in staff, but on virtually every single one of them, slips and falls remains the number one cause of accidents, or those are the accidents. What are we doing proactively? And we only have 6 reported this year, or 6 cases. We've got 600 employees, so that's a pretty tiny percentage of the employees. Nevertheless, those are employees that have been injured. What strategies are available to
Yes.
try
Scott
to
and I-
reduce those even more?
That's a great question. Scott and I proactively took the approach to meet with HR a couple weeks ago to have things like train the trainer and making sure that we've set up things to where we know what type of training is happening and how the training, are we hiring a third party to come in and do the training, look at how the training is, what type of training, what is the outcome of the training that we're looking at? What type of level of training is going to impact the people that we're training, what department we're training. So we're looking at it from all different angles. And so when we looked at it and some of the incidences that have come from the training, most recently from our different corrections department, sheriff's department, juvenile department, we looked at dialing it back and hiring third parties so that we have some backup, some protocols in place so that when we do our training, we have certified trainers instead of in-house, like it would be like me training Kathy when maybe I don't quite have all the certification that I need to train Kathy, but I think I know my stuff, but I may not know all my stuff. So we've been taking a very proactive approach to make sure that we have some certifications in place so that training is at much more of a higher level so that we can reduce some of those incidences going forward.
this may make me the odd man out, but none of that made a lot of sense to me. Most of our employees are adults. Most of them have been walking along for a long time, and it's natural that you tend to protect yourself. Some of us even complain when a sign that was hung over by the crosswalk was so low that anybody distracted is going to gash their scalp on it, and we report that. So I don't know what you would tell people, but before I go down that path, we are an older population, and I know that if you observe me, when I go down the stairs, and I always take the stairs, my hand's on the rail. Of course, I got to balance that against all the diseases I picked up along the way. But I'm just saying, if you're going to spend a lot of dollars on training and training consultants, I want to see a result here. And I'll bet you I won't see a result there. The numbers are small, and I'll bet you, like the gentleman said, that's not very many accidents. Now, if you tie that into, well, we have a repair shop and there's always spilled oil on the floor and all that kind of stuff, that is something we can do something about, but it's not a general population kind of training issue. Anyhow, that's my piece on that.
And we're still gathering data right now. Like I said, we just, started to peel back the onion layer with HR. I'm reaching out to other municipalities to see how they facilitate their training to reduce some of these numbers with our risk pool as well. So we're still uncovering, how we can reduce these numbers and reduce some of these categories. So
I think it's fair to say that I'm had the expression and it lost its, I have kind of an allergy to the normal response to things. If we are going to take an action, I want to see kind of the plan. Like if you say, I'm going to spend $20,000 on a consultant, I want to see something that says this will save the county at least $20,000.
So is it safe to assume, because neither the two of you came to us with an excessive amount of concern about slips and falls, that this is not out of the ordinary from your experiences in other industries? Okay.
No, if I was concerned.
So hiring a
I'd be-
consultant probably, like you said, may not be necessary. You just have to monitor it.
And before we do that, I think we would come to you in one of these meetings to say, we've looked at these six plus the last couple of years, and are they, related to bad practices? Are they related to trainable events? Because some of them may be related to fixing the sidewalk or fixing,
Yeah.
things like that. So.
The laws of large numbers help us here because this data is available nationwide. And you just say that
It's very
ratio
small.
is what it is. So we're good.
It
It's
could have
very
happened
small.
during inclement weather, sidewalk, so, yeah.
If you put it on a graph of 600, it would hardly be.
You'd
a
see
blip.
very
Yeah,
nominal
okay.
numbers, yeah.
That's why we use a logarithmic scale, so everything kind of fits.
So now we're going on to slide 8, workers' compensation open pending by department. Tied for first place, sheriffs and solid waste management. They hold the largest portion of this graph in regards to open and pending, just because they are the most out in the public with, dealing with a lot of the most incidences, not dealing with, but just they're out in the force, obviously serving the citizens in the most ways as well as far as cases. Not to say that they have the most, but obviously by the bar graph they do. So sheriffs and solid waste, and then the rest of them, juvenile administration, all have one, jail, weed control clerk, and road fund. Liability claims, just want to say thanks to all of the departments. We put out a survey everyone, thank you for returning this survey back to us. So we really appreciate that. We received the landfill fire reimbursement check back to us for $155,000. So thank you, thank you.
Just offhand for Kathy, how much did that fire end up costing us?
The landfill right there,
Yeah,
we had to pay a $5,000 deductible, so it was $160,000.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. We still have pending the fire that was in the motor pool area, the storage area. And so that one is more like about 90,000 range. It's much smaller. And that one's still pending, but we just have a few more little loose ends on that, and we should getting that one closed up.
Okay, now, that one that you brought up, will you be talking about that a bit later?
I don't,
Once we get all the
yeah,
checks back.
yeah, I
and-
don't think we're finished with everything on that yet.
So we'll get a good total analysis of
Yes.
that at some point.
Mhm. Once we have all the paperwork finished.
It's that kind of thing where I think it's unusual, so we need to understand it.
That should be over the next couple of months. We should have that data
Yeah.
for you. Yep. So liability claims beginning as of March 1st, 2024, 10. New claims in May, 0. Tort claims, 4. Currently in litigation, 6. Closed claims in May, 1. End of claims by May 31st, 10. Any questions?
I think in our rush, the beginning number was supposed to be 11.
I'm sorry, yes, I
Yeah.
just realized that.
So the beginning number should be 11 and because we had one claim that was closed. We just got this report like at 8:30 this morning, so.
8:36 to be exactly. So we were trying to get you the data over promptly. My
And
apologies.
And this is the one where you asked for us to change the format so that, so that you could see tort claims and litigation, the numbers separately.
So not all litigation, not all claims come through the tort. They can just be an outright lawsuit.
Correct.
And some of them actually come both. They come as a tort first and then they submit a lawsuit. So. But as far as open claims, there's 4 tort and there's 6 litigation.
We see the tort claims that come across our desk, the copies that are submitted to us. And it seems almost all of them are complaints from the jail, and those are usually processed, and there's,
Yeah, since I've been here, quite a few of them
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
a majority are.
they're either jail or they're when my window was broken or
right,
you know,
Or
chip sealing
damage,
consequences or
yeah.
paint striping
Mhm.
Or there's
consequences.
a pothole.
and the striping.
Yeah.
So nothing real super serious.
So by that, you mean, is there typically a cap on the tort claims? I mean, we usually see things in the under 10,000 for tort
Yeah.
claims, but not all of them.
No.
But some of the litigation is quite extreme, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
I don't believe there's a cap on torts.
Mm-mm.
There's no cap to my knowledge.
How does a citizen decide to do a tort versus just an outright lawsuit?
I don't know. I mean, they both are both are available avenues for them.
I know the involvement I've had in the past with the torts, I like how we deal with it, but that's because I have this inside view that says we'll really try to be fair completely on it, and I don't know why we'd encourage paying more out to lawyers than you get yourself back in
Yeah.
compensation.
In most instances, our tort claims we do, and litigation as well, but on the tort claims, we do a lot of internal investigation as far as like, you know, interviewing and looking at the situation and investigating it before we get back to the individual. And then in all of these cases, once it comes in, it's turned over to a claims representative at the risk pool. And so that individual leads the charge as far as asking us to gather certain information and relay it back to them. And then they're doing an objective review of everything.
You think in a very succinct manner, you could tell the public what part the risk pool plays in this?
They represent the county for these items, and they provide us a professional individual who is educated and skilled in claims and claims adjustments. And they provide us advice. And then they also, on the litigation, they are the actual party that engages legal representation on behalf of the risk pool and for the county.
So when does something end up in the hands of the risk pool? Almost immediately, right?
Almost immediately.
Say within like 24 hours of a tort claim being filed, we go online and do our report, and then it's picked up by the risk pool.
And then the risk pool does some assessment that may impact how you respond
Correct.
And in the end, we talked about stop loss on the comp claims. There's a stop loss here also. And the public might be interested in hearing, how much do we pay for the participation in the Washington County's risk pool? I'm holding on to my seat.
Yeah, hold on to your seat. We pay close to, for the property, it's about 600,000 annually. And for the other risk, it's about almost $2 million annually assessment. And then our actual loss is 100,000 per incident, and then that the county is responsible for. And then after that, the risk pool consumes the rest.
There's also an aggregate cap, isn't there?
Yes, and I think it's,
2 mil?
no, right, the risk pool, it's actually currently at 3 mil. And then after that, they've procured additional insurance through insurance carriers.
So this is always one of those frustrating areas for us as policymakers, because state law basically gives no protection to the county for claims. That is, if we're involved in a lawsuit where there are other parties involved, and say another party is assigned a 50% responsibility and have no assets, and the county is a party that's partially responsible, we may end up paying the whole thing. That's just the way the law is set up. So we have the safeguards, the professional staff, the experts that can help reduce the risk as much as possible, and argue the cases and try to get us out of those suits if at all possible. But then we have the different layers of insurance to again protect the taxpayers.
Yeah, and partly why I ask this or drill on it or drone on it, both, is people think insurance payments are free. I mean, and it's really very expensive for everybody. Thank you.
And also a small piece of it is impacted by how many claims are paid out on our behalf too. Our assessment has a certain percentage of it that's related to our experience ratios too.
Oh, yeah.
So it is at we try to reduce our exposure and mitigate our risk by having a risk management department.
How many counties are there in the risk pool?
I think there's
Yeah,
37.
I can share that
Yeah,
data
yeah.
at our next,
I
when
think
I
there's
share next.
37 of
There's
us.
very few in Washington that aren't part of the risk pool. Like I think some of the bigger counties like King County and Clark have their own individual. They don't participate, but I'll bring the map so that you can see who all participates in the risk pool.
And
And
then,
the smaller counties have their own because their risk is even less, isn't it?
No, it's not
No.
necessarily that way. Yeah, I thought that when I first
Hmm.
started, but no. Some of the bigger ones just participate in their own individual.
Yeah.
They just pay out their own. Like Clark and King, Skamania does their own, like some of there are some tiny and some big. It's just kind of random. But
am
yeah,
I correct in assuming Wacaycum is in the pool?
Yes.
Okay,
they are
so
in the pool.
how is the net cost of the pool allocated between, say, Wacaycum, a much smaller county, and our county, Cowlitz? Is that on experience or per capita plus
No,
experience?
Actually, the risk assessment, a large portion of it has to do with number of employee hours.
Oh,
So number of hours. And so a larger county with a larger number of employee base will have a larger risk assessment.
I would guess
than a
between
smaller
us
one.
and Wacaicon per capita, we pay more. We have a jail, they don't, for
Right.
example.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't
Yeah, they
remember
don't
their
share
number.
that with us.
Yeah.
We don't get in their business to that level,
We could figure
but
it out
it's
rather quickly.
public,
Yeah.
so yeah. Do you want me to get that granular?
I think on occasion, a checkpoint every 6 months or a year, it's good to just know a little bit of the lay of the land.
Yeah, at our July Washington County Risk Pool meeting, they will be presenting information, some estimates of what they're projecting for the assessments for the next year.
I think just before you came on board, we had a rather strong increase in
Oh,
the,
yes.
and then since you've been here, another strong increase, right?
Right. So you've seen two increases. One was like 30% increase in our assessment and another one was like 20% increase in our assessment. So two back to back. And the outlook is still not very positive for the future on the risk pool. So,
And just in case the public hasn't really has forgotten, we not only pay the premium for the coverage and all we get's the coverage, we get the lawyers with the system and they're expert in this business.
yes, we get all the services of the risk pool.
Ready to move on?
See what happens when we don't get the risk pool attendance for a few months? You get a lot of questions.
No, this is good. This is good. I'm taking good notes for the next presentation. Okay. We'll move on to slide 10, titled Safety. So injury incident reporting, we've updated the fillable form. It's updated on the intranet for ease of locating. We've also sent out some reminders for the injury and incident reporting to all departments. We really are encouraging all staff to fill out that form. I think in the past, maybe staff were not wanting to fill it out, so we're really encouraging them because we don't know what we don't know and we don't know what's broken or what we need to fix. So we've been seeing an influx of those incident reports, which is encouraging to us. That tells us that staff's filling out the forms and being encouraged by their supervisors. So thank you. We've done
On that particular issue, I assume that you're, as a risk manager, you will be associating problem with solution and making sure. And then I think for us, we probably will be happy with a high-level summation.
Yep, as we see them, we'll identify some root cause and then some problem resolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now they're kind of all over the board. So as we see some trends,
There's a lot of catch-up to be done.
yes, good analogy, yes. And then AED, we did a survey, so thank you for all departments for completing the AED survey. We've identified some gaps where we need to order some AED machines, as well as get some department supervisors and or staff trained to be able to administer an AED machine should we need to do that. Currently, we're reviewing the response data and we'll be presenting recommendations in the future. We also have some outdated AED machines and pads, so we're going to be working with suppliers to get some discounts from municipalities as well. Evacuation policies and maps. We're reviewing the current evacuation policy for updates, as well as working on the HOJ evacuation maps. We've had a lot of staff and department movements, cubicle movements. We've got staff working in different locations. So Scott and I are actively working on, we just got maps and we're working with all department managers and supervisors to make sure that the maps we're looking at are current and updated of where staff are actually sitting. And so we're working on those updates to get the evacuation maps current, posted, and then we'll be doing like evacuation drills and working with staff to make sure that they know where to go, where the meeting places are at. And that will be happening very soon.
So you list here the Hall of Justice. In this building, the maps are horribly out of date. Have you found the vault yet?
We are starting with HOJ as our first point
Ah.
building, and then we'll be moving on to each building after
And I
that.
keep looking for that office labeled Parks and Rec in this building, and it's just not there.
Yeah.
And
I
Public Works
know.
is still listed as being here, so.
Yeah,
um,
we're tackling one facility, one building at a time, but yes, we know that each building has to have evacuation maps updated. Every building has to be updated, but one building at a time, trying to not bite off too much that we
Yeah,
can
I think
chew.
your choice of HOJ is appropriate as a number one. Probably this building's the next one. And I'm assessing that by, if you're an employee, and you're smart, you learn what it is that you need to know. But if you're the public, you're coming and going, and we need to protect them.
Right. We started with the building with the most employees, as that would be the greatest impact. So then we'll move on to Office of Administration. Any questions? I would encourage everyone to update on PeopleSoft, your emergency contact. Should you ever have to evacuate and we can't find you and we need to locate you. As I was updating mine, I realized I hadn't filled out my emergency contact. So just a little plug for HR, and should you go MIA, we want to find you. So
Well, we put down the clerk of the board all the time, right?
and then lastly, or not lastly, two more things, training. Prima, I'm going to the Prima conference to learn more about some training gaps, as well as safety and security conference, which is June 6th through the 9th. I'm also working on my risk management certification. There's actually a certification process, which is very lengthy and daunting. So I've started working on that as well.
The next slide.
Bailey, will you go to the next slide?
Sorry, Bailey. And then Narcan rollout, we did a survey for Narcan. So we've been able to administer Narcan, as well as some training for all of those that have Narcan, and then how to administer Narcan. We also kind of had one-on-ones with those that encounter the public frequently, that were not going to be your Narcan administrator, especially those that really have a heavy public encounter, like Parks and Rec. Their first point of contact is 911. We're not going to be your Narcan administrator. That's for paramedics. Narcan is really for those emergency situations.
So that's what you mean by that. I was going to ask you, I didn't. Narcan is for emergency situations anytime. You're saying don't come here first.
Right. We're especially like our Parks and Rec staff or our road crews. I mean, this is for like a staff situation, or if you run across a citizen where you feel like it could save someone's life. But should we be using Narcan on the daily? No, that's for paramedics, 911 type situations.
I think this is a little bit troublesome. I mean, if somebody came right now into this room and just keeled over and we thought it was an overdose, we'd be better advised to apply the Narcan, since there are no negative effects on it, and call 911.
Sure.
Just my thought.
So interestingly, I've been getting inquiries from members of the public who have pointed out the importance of having Narcan available, especially as the use of fentanyl continues to kind of get out of control. And the question was, the free supply has disappeared. It's no longer free. It never was free, but
I was
the
going to
costs
say,
were
where's that?
subsidized. And for members of the public who are interested in being available to help people survive an overdose, it's a $70 cost, which is kind of prohibitive for most members of the public. And so the question was, is there anything the county can do to make the cost more affordable for members of the public that want to be concerned? And, so often the public are our eyes and ears on what's going on, particularly within the drug culture.
Even
So,
with our,
so what you just told us is a little bit counter to us, some of the information that's out there.
we ordered it for staff to use for
Mhm.
in those, in case of emergencies, you see a citizen, obviously we want to help our citizens, but should we be using it every day on, a citizen on a park bench that we've seen several times OD, we would want to get 911 paramedics involved. So I hope I'm explaining that right. We have it on in our vehicles. We have it in certain vehicles that are out in the public use on the daily. But our first point of contact is we're not paramedics. Do we know how to administer it? Have we had the training? Yes.
Interesting, I was at a conference this weekend in which response to fentanyl was the main topic. And it was interesting on the topic of Narcan, the preference was for making it more available rather than having restrictions. But along with that is a notification of the location in an information system called OD Max, which becomes a tool for law enforcement to identify patterns of the overdoses, which could indicate where the dealers are active. So be aware of that as also an important tool, because while we want to save lives, we also want the laws to be enforced. And this can be one of those tools. We haven't really talked about that for Cowlitz County, but that's one of those things that are out there now. Folks from different counties are saying it's a great tool as long as you make sure people report where they're administering the doses. And it's fairly simple. It's now nose sprays,
It's a
basically.
nasal spray.
Yeah, so.
But all of our, what we're relaying here is we did roll it out. All of our departments,
Mhm.
for example, every department in this building has a supply. Some departments have a little bit larger supply based upon their activities that they're doing, but every department has a supply. And I'm not sure if there's any buildings we haven't done. we
We've
haven't-
rolled it out phase 1 and now we're
Right.
moving on to phase 2 and phase 3 of the additional buildings. So if there's a certain department that doesn't have it, they will be getting it soon.
If nothing else, this is an implicit policy, and maybe we ought to have an explicit one, but I would run this and I would get certainly language from our attorneys to be sure that, yeah, obviously.
And what we're trying to convey here is that it would be used on someone who's not breathing, has all the signs that they're in distress, and it's a
Right, no,
life and death
I
matter.
think it's
Yeah.
a little more than that. And I totally understand where you're coming from and I agree with you. I just am thinking that this is going to be problematic and the lawyers will have to help us.
Moving on to security, next slide. So Phoenix Security scope of work. Currently, we're engaged in discussion with PPS regarding surveillance at the museum on Friday and Saturday. The objective is to identify individuals who may need to be trespassed, as well as to ensure visitors proceed without lingering. This initiative is to be incorporated into their current scope of work for PPS and will also be included in the RFP for 2025 contract. And this is just due to recent activity that's been happening at the museum grounds, just to keep the visitors safe, citizens safe, and our staff safe. There's just been recent activity, I think, with the warmer weather, people camping out, and so just to keep everyone safe from harm's way.
Yeah, during the work week, they're there every day.
Yeah. It's been getting, he said during the work week, they've been there every day.
At the museum, yeah.
Yes. And so this current security service is Monday. Well, they're not open on Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday the current security service does make one part of their rounds is to go to the museum. But what we've experienced is that Friday and Saturday, because our current security is not here, then there's been some issues. And so, we're investigating it, and we've asked Phoenix if they can support us with a round on Friday and Saturday, particularly in the mornings.
Do you know if our security folks let KPD know when they're encountering folks, particularly KPD around this campus?
Not unless they can't get the visitors to move along.
Oh,
If they have issues with them moving along, then yes, they do. Right now, our museum director has been reaching out to KPD and yes. But he said he hasn't really had that much difficulty getting them to move along.
it's just
If
that
he
they leave
does.
messes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for us, we've got to face what seems like a reality that this problem isn't going to go away anytime soon. And I'd rather be a little bit spendful
Mhm.
upfront.
We're
And
trying to be
so,
proactive versus more
well,
reactive.
yeah,
And we're kind of behind that.
Hopefully the bright light solution will be effective once they get that installed.
well, I'm thinking on a bigger scope also, we've got enough, who was it was trying to cut through the back fence at the motor pool kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just, uh,
There's a certain element of whack-a-mole wherever they show up, we have to have a responsive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I'm a little pessimistic that this is going to taper down. It'll move up with time still.
And that is all I have, commissioners.
And I appreciate you keeping an eye on that one for the PPS.
And then I did not put this on there, but we are having some environmental testing that will be happening at the HOJ in the next coming months, weeks in regards to the HOJ building. So that will be happening soon.
Are you referring to the emails we received late last week?
I'm not aware of the emails, but most likely, yes. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And we also have we have some space there that's being looked at where 911 was at, looked at for potential, I believe, someone else moving in. And so we know that we need to do some remediation, possible remediation there. And so we're looking at that at the same time, doing it as part of that.
And you're still pushing ahead happily with all the security changes at the HOJ? Oh,
Yes.
Happily.
okay.
That might be the next department.
I mean, oh,
That might be a question for the next item on the agenda.
yeah, although this is one
Yeah.
of those rare
Facilities.
situations where it's risk management has a view into it, right?
Yeah, so clerk of the board and myself we're trying to project management that. And so it's been a bit difficult because those that started the project have left, departed both from facilities and IT. And so there's some gaps on that system that we're a little bit concerned about. And so we're going to be continuing to investigate that.
Hence the sardonic smile.
Yes.
Thank you. So next we have the facilities department. Who speaks for the facilities department?
Sean?
Done their financials for you yet this year. So we have their financials, and then they also have other updates they want to provide you. So we'll start off with, oops, let me, hold on, I want to give you one more. Hold on, you know what? I'm so sorry. I don't know what I gave you.
It all seems clear until the time of action, right?
Ah, now it matches.
I do have enough right copies. Hold on. Facilities capital. Yours. You have yours, okay. Sean's all prepared. He has what he needs. Okay, facilities maintenance. This is in the general fund. So they don't have a.
Just to say, just in
Yes.
case it isn't clear to the public, Kathy is the Director of
Oh, sorry,
Finance,
Kathy.
and we present finance materials with every department, so you may get to see her quite frequently.
Yes, I'm sorry. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. I don't think I even introduced myself last session during RIS. I was assisting Shelley. Shelley had her 1 month mark, I think last week, so. Okay, facilities maintenance, it's a financial, it's through, almost through the end of the month. And when we pull these numbers, they don't have a lot of revenue that comes into the general fund, but they're a little bit behind on where my earmark for miscellaneous, but that's mostly different items. And so Sean may have some information.
Yeah, so in facilities, we do some internal billings for some of our special revenues at the Hall of Justice and Admin Building. We usually do that once a year. We trying for our third quarter this year, and that's where the majority of that revenue comes from.
So what things are subject to be billed?
It's usually billed the cost of maintaining the building on a square foot basis to departments that are not within the general fund.
So you get the rent.
Right.
Okay.
So usually it'll be, if we look at the Hall of Justice, it'll be any of our, like DEM, or in this building, IT or elections or things of that nature.
So how does that mean that if I'm in the Hall of Justice, there are some expenses that you would bill back to them or something like that?
It's kind of a rake back on the non-general fund to help bring some of that money back to the general fund at that point.
In general, what goes into the general fund? The landscaping around there, the maintenance of the bathrooms?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of janitorial and
Yeah.
miscellaneous maintenance items. Yeah.
Okay, on the expenditure side,
So going back to the previous slide?
revenue.
Yeah, what should we conclude from this?
That the revenues will be coming into this fund a little bit later in the year. Right now, we're have just a very small amount of revenue that's been charged. You'll see your little target, the red dot on the bar graph. And so we're behind the target, but that's because the billings are they try to do them only once a year.
Okay, thank you.
On the expenditure side, the largest expenditure they do have is their services expenditure. As far as the personnel, we're right on target with our personnel expenses. They're a little larger than prior year, but that's because of a new union contract. Our services are actually exceeding the budget target, but that's primarily because most of our services are billed, internal services are billed once a year. For example, the property assessment primarily goes against facilities, and so that was all billed in January. So that's why they're showing a little bit above the targeted benchmark that we have for them. And their internal services are a little higher than the prior year, exceeding prior year. Like I said, we had some increases in risk management that they're billed for, which is our property insurance.
So to kind of add on to that, if we take our internal services out, our insurance and our IT, we would be about 375,000 of our 1.1 million remaining budget. So of the 1,083,000 that's shown here as expense and services, about 707,000 of that's our internal service costs to either IT or to risk or other things of that nature.
And all the departments show that. You've
Yeah,
been sharing it.
almo-
That's.
Yeah, I've been sharing that almost all departments' services exceed the targeted for looking at year-to-date budget.
So in other words.
So these charts are all new to us also this year.
Mhm.
And I always have to ask myself, how are these useful tools for us right now in determining, are we on track with revenues coming in and expenses going out? Because almost all of them have, they're out of whack because of early in the year billing or late in the year revenue transfers. And it is kind of confusing. How would we know if there's a problem?
The one thing.
No,
that-
actually, I mean, how would we know if there's a problem?
Yeah. So one of the things that you're looking, well, on this one, we may want to change how we're looking at the target for services next year and not do it as a straight line and look at the trend line where, for example, in this case, they're at 59% of the budget. Maybe that's the right trend line for services. Or we might want to break out internal services as its own category. I'm gonna be studying what's the right thing to do for the next year on these. But one of the good things we're also doing is we're looking at how do they look this year compared to prior year.
Yeah.
And so that's also another thing that we look at to bounce off and see, okay, do they have a favorable or unfavorable? And in this case, it said that they're over at this same point in time what it was last year. And so this is where I went and look and I do a little bit deeper dig on it to see, is there anything unusual or is it significantly more? And in this case, I said it's not more than 10% of above prior year. So.
Yeah,
Yep.
actually, I think that is it is a difficult question. You have to choose either of the two approaches. I'm comfortable with this, but I think that if I were to give an answer to your question, I'd say that's what we depend on the department heads to say, everything is normal, but notice here.
Right,
And
there's-
so I count on the department heads very heavily to alert us of issues. And we just have to get used to whichever way actually makes more sense. I sort of like to see it like this because it gives me a feeling for how much float we actually need around. The straight line one is can be misleading. This can be misleading only in the sense that you don't automatically perceive a trend line, but that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question on that one slide. What is the last line? I don't understand that.
The last,
The target?
No, it says personnel X
Oh, that one
Oh.
down there.
Okay.
divided by total rev.
oh, that was just something that we added. I don't know if it's, we're testing the waters on that one.
Well, you got a bite.
Yeah, okay, good.
But,
Um,
but the bite because I don't understand it.
Okay, so what we did was we said, okay, personal expenditures for the current year, and they're hovering around 380,000 as a percentage of total revenue. Well, this fund doesn't receive very much revenue because it's general fund, so it's a little misleading. So you'll notice that it says 1,382% as a percentage of revenue. And then the prior year, the personnel
Yeah,
expense
okay, I understand.
total for the year as a percentage of revenue was 242,000.
In this case, it's largely useless, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
But in the cases for example, in the case of a enterprise fund or service center,
Understood. What's on my mind is is the sanctity of the format and in
yeah,
the
we're trying
template something
to stick with the standard format, so that's why.
across all things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand that.
And we also, this was also where we added the information for you on, based upon the current year, they have 7 positions filled. So you can see they're a little bit behind budget versus actual on the target. And that's because they have some vacancies right now. But it's interesting, last year they were at the exact same point as far as prior year, 7 filled and 2 open positions, 2 vacant.
Well, the difference must be who's running the show.
Maybe you can figure out a generalization that would allow us to take any information that appears on here should fall under the statement that my colleague said, it's got to be useful to us in some way. So if there's something that's non-useful, it just exposes us to more delay in trying to
Question.
figure.
Yeah, in this case, I think it depicts and shows you, okay, our target for the personal expenses is a little higher than actual. Well, that's because we have open positions.
1,382.
No, that other line, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
think
the
if you can
line.
get that on our investment pool, I'd appreciate it.
I wish. That's it for facilities unless you have other questions they also have a second fund, if you want to bring it up, Bailey, which is their capital improvements fund. And this is the one where their expenditures for most of their major and minor activity repairs occurs.
And amazingly, they have no FTEs.
Amazingly, yeah, you're right. And then as far as their taxes, this is the REIT, I say, REIT taxes. And so they're a bit behind the target for budget. They're at 22%. They should be probably, based upon the May time period, more like 33%. But most of our taxes are posted on the last day of the month, and this was pulled before the last day of the month.
Well,
So,
we have been informed, I think, that REIT revenue is down because that's a
Yes.
function of turnover and property ownership.
Yes.
And you know,
But we budgeted correspondingly for that to happen.
okay.
Yeah, and so prior years, we've seen some pretty extraordinary REIT values coming in. We did reduce our expectations.
Okay.
And of course, this is only 3 months worth of REIT. The
Right.
first two go back into the prior year. But we are still seeing lower numbers than what we even expected. Sometimes we do see the summer months climb. There's a little bit of a cyclical nature to it. But we'll keep you updated and informed on that.
And the other financing revenues is for both $1 million for ARPA funds and then $1 million transfer in from the general fund. And that the general fund transferred happened the last part of the month. And ARPA hasn't happened, and we went ahead and budgeted for it, but it probably won't happen this year because the project won't be initiated till later this year.
Mhm. Also, for the public, REIT stands for real estate excise taxes.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
that portion funds capital improvements.
So the the ARPA transfer is from which of the two ARPA designations?
It's the restricted dollars.
Direct qualifications. So the tougher one of the two.
Yeah,
And that's going for what? I can't remember.
HVAC at the
HVAC.
Hall of Justice.
Systems, okay.
Mhm.
And-
And so the rules are the funding has to be obligated by the end of this year, which we hope to do, and then spent the next 2 years, which
By
we hope to.
2026.
Yep, we hope to start construction 2025.
what, maybe it's out of order. I'll count on you to tell me. What happens if we go ahead through and we do the what's the word you use? The commitment for the HVAC,
Obligation.
the obligation, thank
Mhm.
you. And then next spring, we look at it and say, this doesn't make any sense. Now what happens?
That's a great question. I'm not sure on the auditor's office side or our obligation side. Susan, I know, sorry, picking on you, but in your world with similar dollars restricted in that sense, do you know what the process is if we obligate but don't move forward? Yeah, ARPA's obviously very new. I'm not quite sure what would happen. I mean, thankfully at that point, we haven't spent the dollars, which would be obviously a bigger issue, but for obligation, there could be a process in appealing and then reapplying.
But
Potentially.
with ARPA, there's an even more significant deadline. It's got to be spent by the end of 26.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
everybody's aware of that. So, and that's as we get closer to that deadline and contractors being who they are and supply chains being difficult, we may run up into,
Absolutely.
maybe challenged. I know that in some of the countywide meetings that I've attended, there's been discussion about the closer we get to that 2026 deadline, and the realities are projects aren't able to get finished, they will be going back to Congress and asking for some adjustments, but you don't know until it happens. And
Correct.
that's pretty hard to predict future in politics right now.
Yeah, I would defer a lot of that to the auditor's office.
Yeah, at the moment, we continue.
Yes.
Okay, on the expenditure side, not a lot has transpired for this year so far through May. We do have a transfer scheduled, that 300,000's for the debt on the morgue, and the majority of that amount was transferred the last day of May, and so that will be showing up on our next statements. But most expenses are still under target for our budget purposes.
Just as a refresher, how much are the payments on the morgue?
The morgue in total, both principal and interest for an annual basis is the full 300,000. All of that 300,000 transfers just for the morgue. And it's both the morgue and the equipment.
Yeah.
There's two financing pieces.
And we're facing that for how many more years?
Oh, I don't know.
It wasn't super long, I don't think.
I recall that the equipment is a significantly shorter period of time than the building itself.
Yeah. The reason is I look with enthusiasm when we've got the landfill paid off and the morgue paid off. That'll give a, yeah, would be champagne time.
It'll be champagne
Well,
time.
The Hall of Justice bonds will have to probably start being paid for.
That's the point. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Assuming that goes forward. And Molly will be very anxious to hear about that.
She says she loves the Hall of
Yes,
Justice.
she did.
That's all I have on facilities. Then I'll turn it over to Sean.
And we just wanted to give an update on our project list. I believe Savannah handed that out to you. We are preparing for the admin and annex roof still this year. That scope should be out to bid here in the near future. The Hall of Justice parking lot, that's moving forward here
I'm
with.
sorry, what about the annex building?
So those are items 12 and 13 on this list,
Mhm.
both slated
Oh,
for
Got it.
this year.
So the bid package on those is getting prepared to go out to bid, so we can start that process this summer and fall for those roof replacements.
The roof replacement in this building, you're not doing the entire roof.
I believe so.
Why did the Hall of Justice cost us $2.5 million to fix the roof, which amounted to a replacement, and this is only 400,000? Are we that much smaller of a footprint?
I think there might have been some extenuating circumstances at the Hall of Justice.
About
I don't want to,
$2.1 million worth?
I don't want to speak on it. I don't know a ton about it. I do know the material makeup of the Hall of Justice roof being the, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's like the tar and the rock combination added a lot more dollars to the cost. And I don't believe that's the same situation here or at Annex.
And we're comparing the same type of roof that we did at the Health and Human Services to this
Correct.
here, and that's how we're coming up with that estimate.
Yes.
Yeah, the health was 300 and change on that one.
And that finished fall of last year.
Hmm.
So that's our price comparison, same material. I don't know if that, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that answered your question, but
No, that was fine.
And then we have our parking lots. We're moving forward with on line 16, the Hall of Justice North parking lot, also known as the employee parking lot, getting that repaved and restriped this year. And then at jail and juvenile, doing a crack seal and restriping of those lots. The overall condition didn't require a replacement. So we're still moving forward on that. And I believe that's mostly going to be done with county staff from our road crew. The ivy removal has already been completed at this building. We still have the Hall of Justice to do. That's going to be a pretty significant project. Going down to the next section, we are still working with our CIP committee on our tenant improvements for the year. Line 23, the Hall of Justice jury reconfiguration. It's in process. I don't know if you've been over there recently. The furniture should be delivered, I believe, this week. Is that correct, Savannah?
that sounds correct.
That
but
sounds
I-
right. So we should see that coming to completion here soon. The door locks we kind of touched on earlier this morning.
A question on the door locks. Right now on this building, if I use my key fob, does it know it is Arn who used the key fob? I'm assuming that the new ones will actually let you know which key fob was used to access.
Is that something that we can answer publicly, like from a risk perspective? Can we get back to you on that?
Sure.
And then coming down to the bottom of the list, we are working with our HVAC and electrical panels for this year in conjunction with our HVAC project, moving on to next year's budget as well. So I just want to give you a quick update on where we're at with the projects and how we're seeing that flow through this year. And just any questions on those?
I do like your spreadsheet. Fairly easy to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did come up here just to give a couple small updates on facilities as far as revenue streams. We had come to the board a couple weeks back and just notified you that we were trying to secure additional funding for congressional funding for the HVAC upgrades at the hall. We do have the $1 million in ARPA funding, and then the rest would come from the general fund. So we did do quite a few applications through Maria Cantwell, Patty Murray, and Glusenkamp Perez. And two of those applications I've heard back on. Maria Cantwell application, we asked for $3 million to assist us towards the overall costs, and that's moving forward. So it's gone through the first, I guess, level, moving on to the second level, which could always be cut. But that is good news either way. And then I have a call into Glusenkamp Perez to follow up on some questions they had for that application. So nothing set in stone, but that is moving forward. We're getting some positive feedback. So that was my only update. Nothing concrete yet, but moving forward nonetheless.
You said you're not using concrete for these things?
Not at the hall. It needs no more concrete there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber, you realize how far behind we are on the schedule now, on the time today?
Oh, yeah. We'll get through it.
Can we blame the clerk?
Huh?
Yeah, let's blame the clerk.
Okay, we
Oh,
have,
actually, I prefer to blame previous commissioners for all things that go wrong. As I'm sure Rick will next year.
so we have the district courts financials. They are a general fund department. And so they have relatively few revenues, but they do have revenues. The majority, they have intergovernmental, which is a small portion, and it's a positive variance. Goods and services, the revenue's lagging a bit compared to 2023 and also compared to budget. And so we're looking at that. Fines and penalties are lagging a bit compared to 2023, but they're well ahead of what we budgeted as our target for this point in time. So, and then miscellaneous is very small and immaterial.
So can you share what an example of the intergovernmental transfer would be into district court?
I think it's a grant, any grants or contracts they may have.
And those would be grants from,
And we don't have any grants right now, but we do participate in the interpreter reimbursement program. So we can get a certain amount of funds back by reporting data on the interpreters we use from AOC.
otherwise known as the smelt season fiasco.
Correct, but it goes on every day, all year long now.
I say smelt season because you've shared before when smelt fishing is open, people don't follow the rules. You get the tickets, and the tickets that are issued go to district court, and
Yes.
you need
Yes.
quite a collection of different languages
We do, yes.
to help explain the process.
Another one that may fit in this, Kathy, would be the state reimburses partially for judicial salaries. That probably counts in this, but that's pretty stable year over year.
Okay, thank you.
By interpretation, we are talking about all the languages that you have to deal with.
Yes.
What is that? How are we using AI to help us there? Or even right now, it seems like it'd be pretty elementary. We can do a lot of interpretation with what's on the network.
This is mostly for court hearings, and we are required to have a person, a certified interpreter for most languages. They can be registered for others, but that's what's required for court is we actually pay a
That's
person
by
to do that.
RCW.
Yes, court rules, RCWs, all of that, yes.
That needs to change, in my opinion.
So,
How much does an interpreter get paid?
you know, they standard is probably about $65, $70 per hour. And most charge a 2-hour minimum. So even if they're coming in just for 5-minute hearing, it costs us 2 hours.
But those get reimbursed from the state for the most part, or?
Up to a certain amount that they determine for
Okay.
us. So this year we can get up to, I think, $28,000 total, and it's, and it is half of each one we report to them. But we've been getting the full amount, reporting enough to get the full amount of $28,000 back. But that's, I would say that's somewhere maybe a third of what we pay for our interpreters usually.
And in the area of other rules and regulations, this, I think the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court has ruled fairly unfavorably on collecting fines. That most judges are kind of avoiding that. Perhaps more at the Superior Court level because you're dealing with tickets and.
Yes, they
those-
have though in recent years, they bounce back and forth, but they have made some rulings and changes that have extended how long a person has to pay things and under what circumstances they have to. So yes, we've been impacted by that also.
So as we try to support law enforcement and in the hopes that, you know, more laws are being enforced, which means the courts are being used a lot more. The more activity that happens in your department that is not covered by grants or fines and fees means the general fund kicks in. And our general fund is primarily property tax, which can't grow more than 1% in aggregate each year, other than new buildings. So that becomes a pressure point for us in deciding, well, which programs get cut to make room for justice issues, because that should be one of the key things. So that's always an interesting challenge from those who make the rules, who don't have to provide the services. And sometimes it defies logic that they do what they do.
Sometimes.
Well, to the extent that they allow for grants to help subsidize a portion of it, that's helpful. But yeah, overall, it's pretty tough.
And as you noted, fines and penalties are another major source of revenue for this department. And they are above their target for budget. They're already at 52% of budget for the year. So.
Yeah, the public should understand, we don't go out there and levy fines just to make income. It's the cost of trying to maintain a civilized
Right.
society.
So that's it on the revenues. On the expenditures side, our expenses, of course, for this department is a little over $3 million. We're currently through the month of May at about $1 million expended. We are on the personnel side, we're a little bit below our budget target. And that's probably due to, we have one vacant position, one open position at this point in time. But again, on our services, we're a little bit ahead of our target, and that's primarily due to those internal services being billed in January. So there isn't anything material on the expenditure side that I'm concerned about here.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we're at miscellaneous. I think we ought to just move on with your agreement.
Mhm.
All right, so on the schedule, it says citizen comments, so I would look to see if anybody really wants to say something. There's always time for comments, and someone can always put their hand up, and we'll do our darndest to honor that. But let's move on to the agenda item review. And that is my favorite noxious weed person, who can supply you with all noxious weeds that you want.
Good morning. I
Morning.
can't supply you with the noxious weeds. I have to take them away. So today we have on the consent agenda a small contract with Columbia Land Trust. For the past, I think, 5 to 8 years, we've been receiving a contract with them to carry out noxious weed control work along Abernathy Creek. This overlaps with our knotweed project, and so it's made sense for our program to carry out other noxious weed control in addition to the knotweed. All of the properties are within this conservation easement. I think there's about 7 landowners involved, and Columbia Land Trust provides the funding for the entirety of our project. It's about just over $3,000.
About $3,000?
Yes.
So they are paying, Columbia
Yes.
Land Trust is paying the
Yes.
Noxious Weed Board 3,000.
How do you keep track of that, in the sense that you submit to them hours, or?
Yes, we submit to them all of our expenses for labor, travel, and I think we do herbicide as well. So whatever it costs us to do the project, we
And
track that and submit it.
Then regardless of the condition of the job, at 3,000, you stop?
They set some boundaries as to what they would like accomplished, and if we achieve our funding before that, we would discuss whether to continue or whether they're going to contribute more money. At this point, that hasn't happened in the past. We've always been able to stay under budget, so.
Excellent.
So $3,000 buys how many hours of,
About 3 to 4 treatment days, and usually that's about three team members. We usually use our seasonal technicians to carry out some of that work, so. About 3 or 4 days of work.
And that includes all the materials and all that?
Yes,
Every little bit helps,
Every little
particularly when
bit.
it is doing away with noxious weeds.
prevent the spread where we can.
Yeah. Anything that the public should know that is hot being spread that shouldn't be spread?
Right now, we have found that shiny geranium has doubled in infestation sizes since last year. A lot more letters.
you brought up last year, that was brand new.
This one's not new.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I've talked about this one before, actually. But it's a very low-growing annual plant, and it can eject the seeds 20 feet from the host plant. So, and then it can also reproduce within the same growing season. So those seeds can generate.
I think there was an article in the newspaper
Yes.
about the shady.
The Columbia River Reader did have an article last month in the newspaper. So that one, and then Italian arum is another one that we're really seeing grow. It's called Italian arum. It's a toxic plant, but we have also doubled our infestation since last year. So we had to print more information.
Just, can you send the clerk of the board a picture of
Yeah.
both of those, and we kind of include it in the record?
Well, we can do that, or we can just send one of the technicians to your house, see if it's there.
Well, they'll have to decide whether it's growing inside or outside too, so. it'd
I
be
can
difficult.
send you all our fact sheets on those 2 species since they're proliferating.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you got the list of projects that facilities and maintenance is working on, it includes a plan for more ivy removal.
Mhm.
So do they get brownie points for pursuing the noxious weed? that
Absolutely.
Used to be decorative? and
Absolutely brownie points. I would hope that we either can keep it away or replace it with something beneficial. So I'm happy to talk with whoever's involved with that project more if they need assistance, but it looks like they've got it under control.
Well, we'll see as the growing season progresses.
Yes, we'll see how it
I've
comes
noticed
back.
the little leaves perking up. above the-
What we often see happen with ivy removal is the ivy removal is often successful, but since birds have been habiting that area, they drop other kinds of seeds. So then we often see different species come up. So we'll monitor the areas and see if anything suspicious arrives.
I noticed you judiciously chose a career focus because I've never heard of anybody who had eliminated weeds, no matter how hard they tried.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sometimes we just legalize weed and then it goes away.
Very good.
Does it really go away though?
Uh, Thank you. Is there anything else?
No, if there are no other questions on the contract,
How many have you hired for your summer help?
we have 3 seasonal techs that started last week.
And
Oh.
then 2,
We have 2 inspectors that are full-time year-round.
okay, so basically a crew of 5 in the summer.
Yes,
Yeah, and then you're overseeing everything.
and I'm always involved in everything.
All right.
I got to do some false brome treatments last week. That was exciting.
You're
So
not jumping over logs or anything like that?
I don't jump over logs. I slowly crawl like
Okay.
a little spider because I don't want to fall or spill.
That's good. Otherwise, we'd have to put you in touch with the
Risk
risk management and go through some training.
Oh, I'm in touch with them on all of our trainings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's almost mean for the public because we're discussing an inside joke about a previous,
Yeah, we
Case,
won't
but-
say anything.
yeah.
Sometimes things are best left out unsaid. Are they not so, Marin?
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. We have a contract amendment on the consent agenda tomorrow. It's with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. This is a contract we've had in place for this, I think is our 3rd amendment. This is for our MAT or MOUD program, medically assisted treatment. That's partially funded through the mental health tax and partially funded through the state contract. We've been, with each contract, been working towards increasing the state contribution and thereby decreasing the mental health tax, the county
Mhm.
portion of the contribution. So with this contract, it will increase the state contribution to 437,000 and decrease the county's contribution to about 231,000. That's about an $80,000 change
We
the
are
total-
speaking here annual.
annually. The total has remained the same. It's just shifting where the reimbursement's coming from.
Of course, that tax is gone
Correct.
and the funds are slated to last through the end of next year. Can you share some examples of what a difference this program has made in the operations of the jail?
Sure. Well, just from the outset, we're required by the state to do this. So we don't really have a choice here, but so this money is used for detoxing inmates when they come in with opioid addiction. So to assist with the detox, it's a much safer way to detox inmates. And then it allows for them to be on medically assisted treatment while they're incarcerated and then connects them as they're exiting the facility so that they can remain on that program in the community and hopefully stay away from drugs.
And being on a treatment program means they're not scurrying around other people's property looking for things to steal in order to finance self-medication, right?
Correct. And the strength of having it start in the jails is that they're not leaving the jail and then having to chase that around and try to get started on medication. They're leaving us medicated, connected with an appointment to continue their medication in the community. And that's one of the requirements of this pot of grant funding.
Will you be here tomorrow or online?
Yep, yes.
Here?
Mhm.
Good, because I'm sure there'll always be a lot of questions about this.
Yep.
That's interesting. So is this the additional compensation? How does that compare with the previous compensation?
So the total amount for the program is the same. It's about 668,000. So what this does is increase the state contribution from 357 and change to 437,000 and decreases what the county is pulling from
wondering how much
310
they
to
were-
231.
Do you see that as a trend, that the HCA will continue to assume more responsibility financially?
Well, there are, of course, no promises when it comes to the state, but that amount of money has been increasing. And not all counties are taking advantage of this. So we've been lucky that we got in on the front end, but we've been able to see it increase each year. So I would anticipate that will continue
And
lessening.
these are dollars specifically for the jail usage, not,
That's correct, yes.
yeah.
Right.
Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. As normal, we have
Presenting Public Works.
Public Works. Always has fun things for you guys on the agenda. So this week, our first item is a call for bids for headquarters landfill rock materials. This is an as-needed rock bid. We have them haul up rock materials, deliver them to site, and we get stockpiles for our roadways and then drain rock, which we use around the gas wells. There is a condition in the contract that the rock cannot be hauled down South Silver Lake Road. It must go down Headquarters Road, which has been a comment in the past from the public. So we
Right.
keep that in there. Those bids will open on June 26 at 1:30. Our next item is a supplemental agreement to a local agency agreement we had with Columbia West Engineering for materials testing. That contract needed to be extended to cover some ongoing projects that they were working on. This extends it to the end of this month, although all of the work is physically done.
We had approved it before, and this is just. a
Yes,
time
this is,
extension.
what happened is the construction contract ran longer than we anticipated, so we need to extend it out. We have a new contract in place for the construction contracts that are occurring this summer.
So we should see another one of these sometime in the future.
So we will see, so we have a new contract for our current construction contracts for this year and next year. So potentially in a year and a half, we'll have another extension.
So we have already approved those.
Yes, we've
Yeah.
already approved that contract. The third item is the temporary possession and use recorded agreement with Christina Schnabel Bills for the South Cloverdale project. That is just for the record. We approved that in workshop. That's for the South Cloverdale project.
Last one?
Yes, but you'll see it one more time because this is our possession and use, and we'll have a finalized easement once we come to agreement on the price.
Oh, so a portion of it will be a permanent easement.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
But we have not come to a final agreement on the price, but she's willing to give us the possession and use. So then we have, those were our items on the consent agenda. We have two motion items. The first is the bid award to Lakeside Industries for the 2024 overlay project for the amount of $2,121,000. We received two bids. This is slightly over the engineer's estimate, but not at an amount that we cannot absorb in the budget, and it's not an unreasonable request.
Now, in this case, we don't anticipate any change orders, right?
So we tend to, on this project, if we have a change order, it's a very minor change order because the quantity is estimated based on our road log and center line miles and roadway width that's in the road log, but there can be slight variations in that width. So in general, our change orders are, we'll have a 10, 15 ton overrun. A lot of times that may be absorbed by an underrun in a different area. So in general, we don't have big change orders on this. They're cleanup change orders. The other change order that might come is because there is an asphalt cost price adjustment that is included on these, and it is purely indexed. So, you know, it protects the contractor and us. Sometimes it's a decrease, other times it's an increase. So that might be another thing that would cause the price to go up in a change order.
And this includes parts and labor.
Yes, this is all materials, labor, all the flagging, all the traffic control.
And in the past, a bill of, say, 2 million would have come in at, I should say, a contract that says $2 million would have come in at 2,050,000 maybe.
So
Get a feeling for how much variation there might be in the final price.
So it has been slowly going up over time. I did not pull last year's bid tabs to see what the cost increase per ton is
No,
per
I
area.
meant the final contract is here at $2,121,010.
Right.
Statistically, can I expect that to be under 2,200,000 with all the change orders in?
Yes. We run these pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're off the hook.
Okay, then our final motion item is the contract execution with Compass Construction for the Slide Creek Road realignment project in the amount of $278,901.82. So Compass Construction was also the low bidder on the Kalama River Road contract. So we're running both those contracts with them this year.
It's always sounds good as we make progress on some of these
Yes.
projects that go year after year after year in the planning. And it's great when a plan comes together, as they say.
It is. I'm always excited to delete a project from the 6-year plan.
So I don't know if the clerk has mentioned to you though, but we're still getting documents for our signature with incorrect names and titles for the three of us. You might want to double check. I know cutting and pasting is a favorite activity, but it's a little painful when I have to scratch out chairman because I haven't been chairman for well over a year.
Yes, I'll touch
Just
bases
kind
with
of
the
double
Secretary of
check on
Staff.
that.
We did have a changeover in staff and I wonder if she pulled an old one, but I will check on that for you guys. I apologize.
Yeah, along those lines, I still get some documents from you with SON.
Okay, I will make
Those are
sure.
Key issues, you understand.
They are. I understand.
And for some reason, it's Public Works. The other departments have
Correct.
taken care.
Yeah.
Oh, other departments don't bring stuff to us.
So what's the timetable on this?
On which,
The Slide Creek?
so the Slide Creek, once it's executed, I'm trying to remember back in my databases. I didn't write it down on this one. Can't remember how many working days it is. I would imagine it is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 working days, so they'll get this executed. We'll start work in July and be done September.
Why does this seem to me to be fairly low price?
It is a fairly low price because We are allowing the contractor to shut the road down, which drops the traffic control, and traffic control can be at a very
Would you
expensive
begin that
items.
again? I missed the beginning.
So there is going to be minimal traffic control on this project because we're going to shut the road down, because you can go opposite directions and still be able to get out. And it is a fairly small project. We are moving the roadway away from the creek. So it is literally pulling up a little bit of asphalt and clearing and grading a portion of the roadway and just repaving it.
Okay, thank you. That is good. Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
And we're now ahead of schedule.
I beg your pardon?
We're now ahead of schedule.
Oh, we're 9 minutes ahead of schedule. Time for miscellaneous. Do you have any? No. So I don't have any readily. Citizen comments, as you please, for the next 9 minutes or so. We all look at each other. Well, shall we have a 8-minute recess?
Yes.
8-minute recess, please. Hello, we're back in session. And next item on here is going to be human resources. And for that, we have our Director of HR.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have one request to fill this morning. Public Works is requesting to fill an operator 3 at Longview Shop. The employee is retiring effective June 30th, and they're also requesting domino effect with this position.
I'm okay with that. How about you?
Thank you. And then I have 2 requests for executive sessions. The first is qualifications of an applicant, and the second is collective bargaining.
And the estimated amount of time?
Let's say 10 for each, so 20.
So does the clerk have that? So we will now move for 2 executive sessions, and they will start at 11:03, let's say, and go for 20 minutes unless we advise otherwise.
Thank you.
We just got out in a timely manner from the executive session. No decisions were made in that executive session. And we go back to HR.
Hello again, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a couple more requests from the prosecuting attorney's office. The first is they're hiring a child support attorney, and this was previously a full-time attorney position, but they would like to request to make this a part-time 80% attorney and start that person at step 3, which would be a prorated amount from the current step 3.
I'm okay with that. Do we need a motion or just?
Okay,
Okay.
It's okay.
thank you. And then the next request, they have another attorney who can't start until September 1st, but they're requesting to start that attorney at step 2.
Previous experience.
Yes, comes with a lot of previous experience, but he's out of state currently.
I'm good with that. Sounds good to go.
Okay. And then the last request,
I think both of those represent filling positions that have been vacant for a
currently
while,
open
and
positions, yes.
Job needs to be done still, so.
And the last request, one of their current legal specialist positions is moving into a current vacant legal specialist position, and they're requesting to move her from step 2 to step 4 when she makes this move, and then also keeping her anniversary step date of October 1st.
And again, what we learned was that this employee has been doing exemplary service and wants to recognize that.
And taking on more duties.
I'm-
So we're good.
I'm good with it. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. That's all.
thank you.
And that's it for HR? Don't you have a request for increasing the compensation of the lame duck? For the commissioners that are lame ducks? Oh, okay. Maybe next time. Thank you. Miscellaneous?
I have no miscellaneous.
Okay. Let people know tomorrow it'll still be the two of us, and on Wednesday it'll still be the two of us. Rick Dahl's on vacation. Time for public comment. I haven't seen any hand come up at all. Any of you three gentlemen want to make a comment? Thank you, everybody. With your approval, Mr. Weber, we shall adjourn.
So shall it be.